adjust it? Or is it okay?
I like being off camera. Warm in here. Okay.
Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadi Tamastu Mavidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman protect us, may he guide us and give us strength and right understanding. May love and harmony be with us all. Om, peace, peace, peace. And good evening. We're reading from this book, Religion and Its Practice, the first disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, various lectures selected, and we are reading the one on what is true self-surrender. And this one is by Swami Saradananda. And we're in the middle of this one. And just as a reminder, just as the title of the book says, religion is something we're supposed to practice. It's not just a belief system that you believe in or have faith in, but once you believe in it and have faith in it, you have to practice it. So that's the essence of this. All right, so let's continue. We're in the middle of this lecture on what is true self-surrender.
It may seem that self-surrender is an ordinary action and is easily done. Man is enslaved by his desires and seeks for advantage even in spiritual life. He wants to have worldly pleasure and divine joy simultaneously. To him, the pleasures of the world appear so sweet and delectable. The very thought of their renunciation fills him with a sense of dreadful emptiness. What will he live for then? Therefore, when he is told that the power of attorney can be given also in spiritual life, he ecstatically thinks that he has at last found out the right thing. Let me, so he thinks, live my life with its iniquities and immoralities, enjoy the pleasures of the world. Let's Sri Chaitanya, Jesus, or Sri Ramakrishna look after my prospects in the other world. He does not feel that it is nothing but wicked self-deception. He willfully blinds himself to his evil doings, lest their terrific faces should frighten him. He rushes headlong towards destruction. One day his eyes shall be uncovered, and he will find himself tossed on tempestuous billows in a shoreless ocean, and he will feel that his power of attorney has not been accepted by anyone.
It reminds me of some lyrics in an opera that I wrote many years ago. And my sister sang the song, "The pleasures of the world are fleeting. This plain truth deserves repeating." So that line was a little catchy phrase there at the beginning, and she had to talk the hero into the story, into sacrificing his life for discovering the truths of the oneness of all the gods. So that was the gist of that plot. But of course, in this talk, he's talking about how we can kind of deceive ourselves into thinking we've surrendered everything and that we've given the power of attorney to the Lord, but it really isn't nearly that easy. And Swami Vedanta gave a very detailed lecture on free will and how paradoxical, it seems, because it seems like we don't have free will, and yet we feel like we do have free will, and you can kind of convince yourself logically that we don't have free will and that everything's determined. But if you try to live that way, it's disastrous. You have to. It's like you're in this game of Maya, and you've got some illusion over you, and you have to sort of play by the rules. You can't just pretend like you're not playing in the realm of Maya. And so, as Sri Ramakrishna often points out, and as all these direct disciples are pointing out, you have to actually practice things. You can't just say, well, everything's predetermined, and so nothing matters, and it doesn't matter what I do. It does matter what you do, and you have to do your spiritual practices. So we can go on now, and let's see what Sardananda is going to tell us about this power of attorney.
In fact, giving the power of attorney is not a matter of mere wish. A certain state of mind resulting from hard struggle and perseverance is an essential precondition. Only in that mental state can one truly give the power of attorney to the Lord, who also then actually accepts it. One must feel the unreality of worldly joys and have come to the end of one's powers after hard struggle. One must have manifested the greatest activity and realized in one's inmost heart that human power is after all limited and omnipotent in the face of the ultimate power. One must struggle hard and practice strenuous sadhana to realize the Lord, and be convinced at last that no amount of sadhana can be adequate to know the infinite Lord. When this helplessness will come, then the piteous cry will go forth from the heart for the help and protection of a Savior. And then alone, will the Lord take his burden on himself. Otherwise, if a man finds that the life of sadhana distasteful, leads an undisciplined life, and asserts when protested against, though he's given the power of attorney to the Lord, who is therefore responsible for his actions and must change his mind if he is to do better, he really deceives himself and others. He is not sincere.
You know, it's very similar to the debate between self-effort and grace. You've got the same dilemma there. And really what it boils down to is you have to make effort. But once realization comes, it is so beyond your possible imagination that you know that it couldn't possibly have been just your sadhana that did it, that it was the grace of the Lord that ultimately gave you that spiritual realization, because it's infinite, it's beyond comprehension, it's nothing that your mind could have conceived of, and being infinite, no amount of finite practices could have gotten you there. And yet you have to do those practices in order to prepare yourself. People that fall into realization accidentally often end up a bit deranged in the head. They simply can't handle it because it's so overwhelming and so unfamiliar. They're simply not prepared for it. And so you have to prepare yourself, and even after you've prepared yourself, you'll realize that it was the grace of God that gives it to you in the end. Okay, let's go on.
Now suppose a man has given the power of attorney to the Lord, and he therefore thinks he has no need of practicing sadhana. If it is to be genuine, he must think of the Lord every moment of his life, and of how he has rescued him from the entanglements of the world. This constant thought will inevitably inspire him with a great love and devotion for the Lord. Out of his very gratitude and love, he will take the name of God and meditate on him. not required to be persuaded to do so. Therefore, if one, after giving the power of attorney to God, finds oneself averse to the contemplation of him, one must infer that one's power of attorney has not been real and has not been accepted by God.
Yeah, and he made that point in the previous paragraph about how you have to become exhausted with your efforts in some sense in order. One must struggle hard and practice strenuous sadhana to realize it and be convinced at last that no amount of sadhana is adequate. This reminds me of Ramakrishna's parable of the bird that's on the mast of the ship, and he doesn't realize that the ship has gone out to sea, and he wakes up and he tries to find dry land, and he flies this way and he can't find it, flies that way, can't find it, flies every direction, can't find it. Finally, he simply, in exhaustion, has to sit on the mast and wait for the ship to go back to land. So that's another idea here, I think, that's coming forth, is that the effort gives you the ability to surrender. You have to exhaust all your possibilities, and then you're ready to surrender. Otherwise, your surrender will be lip surface only. You're just doing it because you think it's something that's good to do. Another good point here is he's bringing out the idea that really the essence of all religions is to be able to remember God at all times. So if you analyze all the different faith traditions that have survived the tests of time, they all have ways for you to remember God all the time. And so, for example, if you're Jewish, you have a covenant with God and you follow certain rules during the day. You do this and you don't do that. And these are because you have this covenant with God. And so you're constantly reminded with all these different things that you're supposed to do and not do of this covenant with God. So you're remembering God all the time. If you're a Christian and you have accepted Christ as your Savior and accept the idea that he's died for your sins, then again, you're not going to forget him. That's a constant reminder. I know oftentimes Christians will wear a cross on a necklace, and then every time the cross hits their chest, they remember that connection. And of course, in Hinduism, we have all sorts of techniques of remembering the Lord all the time. And we're going to go into some of those in the next couple of sections, so we won't go into details now. But let's go on and to the next one, which also has the word self-surrender in it. This is faith and self-surrender. And let's see, is this Turiyananda? Turiyananda, very good. All right. Swami Turiyananda was the head of the San Francisco Center for many years and founded the Shanti Ashram up in the San Jose Hills. Okay, let's go on.
Faith and self-surrender. If man realizes Brahman in this life, then he attains great bliss. Otherwise, great is its loss. He who wants him gets him. Very easy to attain him, for he is so very kind. But who wants him? There's the rub. The Lord has promised that if one searches for him in the right way, he will manifest himself to such a one in the twinkling of an eye. But who searches like that? Such is the force of Maya. She, the Divine Mother, has kept man so busy with other things that he finds no inclination to realize God. Ramakrishna used to say that in a granary, a few grains of puffed rice coated with molasses are kept in a winnowing fan. The rats eat this to their heart's content. Do not get at the bagfuls of grain stocked at the very place. Similarly, man is mad with wife, children, and other things, never cares for the bliss of God realization, though he is very near, within himself. Such is Maya.
You know, this reminds me of two children's stories, fairy tales, you might say, of a couple of centuries ago, when the Alice books, Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. In those, Alice falls asleep and she finds all sorts of interesting things, and she gets discouraged every once in a while, but then she thinks, you know, this is a very curious life. It's kind of interesting, all these strange things that happen here. And she goes on and distracting herself with all these curious things, and it isn't until she gets completely desperate from the insanity of it all, and in one of the books, it's the threat of the Queen of Hearts. It's going to chop off her head, that she realizes that she has to get out of this situation, and then she realizes all she has to do is wake up. Then the other one is The Wizard of Oz, where Dorothy finds herself, again, she's basically fallen asleep, knocked unconscious from the tornado, and so she's dreaming all of this, and she doesn't realize that all she has to do is wish herself back home until the good witch finally tells her, you've always had the ability to go home. All you have to do is true self. All right, let's go on.
Those who resort to me alone cross over this Maya. Take refuge in him with all thy heart. By his grace shalt thou attain supreme peace and the eternal abode. You must have faith, Shraddha. Then there's no more fear in the spiritual, no more fear. In the spiritual world, Shraddha is the one thing that leads to progress. In the Katha Upanishad, we find out how Nachiketa, through Shraddha, attained knowledge. In yoga philosophy also, we find Shraddha praised. In the Gita, the Lord says, the man with Shraddha, the devoted, the master of one's senses, attains this knowledge. Having attained knowledge, one attains at once the supreme peace. These are facts of experience. One perceives them as if were within oneself. So what matters is how people look at it. When one experiences, one does not doubt, even if others say against it. One is filled with bliss. He neither gives nor denies. It's no wonder if one attains this state through his grace. The darkness of ages is lighted up in a second by a single matchstick. Uncle Moon is everybody's uncle, goes the Bengali proverb. So is God everybody's. There's no doubt about this. Why should you feel weak? You are all children of the Divine Mother and therefore possess infinite strength. He whose mother is the Divine Mother herself, of whom shall he be afraid? There can be no want of strength in her children. Through her grace, there is infinite power latent in you. She's really the mother. It's not a mere imagination. Thou art the power of Vishnu, of infinite strength art thou, and the cause of this universe. Thou hast deluded everyone, and thy grace is what leads to liberation in this life. Such is our mother. So what fear can there be? As one thinks, so one becomes. So if you think you're weak, you will become. But why should the children of the mother think themselves weak? What is impossible for you through her grace? How long does it take to free oneself of the ideas, I and mind? The mother, through her grace, can do it for you in a moment. And really, she does it too.
Yes, so we have two familiar ideas here. One is that you have to realize your strength, but realize it's not your strength in the sense of the little you, or the little I in that case. Because you are one with the Divine Mother. You are the child of the Divine Mother. You're one with God. And the power comes through you. You have to realize it's not yours. It's the Divine Mother's coming through you. And you are the vehicle. You are the instrument of that power. And you can't have any fear of death if you know that you're truly immortal and that the death of the body is nothing. That's where the fear comes from. If you identify with the body and mind, then fear comes. The fear of death is the biggest fear of all, but that's because you're misidentifying yourself with the body and the mind. So those are two of the key things to note here. And note that it's the mother also that is the one that gives us the delusion, gives us this realm of Maya to begin with, and she also is the one that gives the keys to our liberation. All right, let's read on.
In the Gita we find, having cut asunder this firm-rooted ashratha with the strong axe of non-attachment, that goal is to be sought for, going whither they do not return. That the children of the Divine Mother have sometimes done this, we find from the lives of great saints like Ramprasad and Kalamakanta. But we also find that they preferred to remain in whatever condition the Mother placed them. Complete resignation to her will. They merely wanted to remember the Mother in all conditions, whatever be those conditions in which she placed them. In whatever condition you place me, O Mother, be it bespeared with ashes or surrounded with riches, at the foot of a tree or on the king's throne. All these are good, if only I do not forget thee. Ramakrishna used to say, the cat carries the kitten, sometimes places it on a well-made bed, sometimes on a heap of ashes. But the kitten has no other cry but, "Mother, Mother." Mother knows where to keep the young ones. Whatever she does is for our good. The devotees never want anything. They do not want even liberation, but only the right to serve her.
Yeah, again, if you take the attitude that you're an actor in the Divine Mother's drama, you have to accept whatever part you're given. And you have to realize that sometimes you might get tested with a difficult role. And just like Job was tested in the Bible many times. And so this is something we always have to keep in mind, is that just because some things don't seem to be going as smoothly as we'd like, or that they're not going the way we thought they ought to go, that doesn't mean that that God has deserted you or the Divine Mother has deserted you. You've just been given that role, and maybe it's because you needed to grow in a particular way, and taking that particular role is going to allow you to grow. Just as a good drama coach, if you're in a drama class, you're not always going to get the lead. Sometimes you're going to get a supporting role. Sometimes you're going to be the villain, and sometimes you're going to be the hero, and sometimes you're going to be the one that gets sacrificed. You have to be able to play all of those roles successfully in order to be a well-rounded actor. So we have to be able to, again, that has to do with self-surrender. That's what we're talking about here. Self-surrender is surrendering yourself to whatever role you are given. All right.
Mother, through her sweet will, can destroy everything and build everything anew in no time. Why say she can? She has done it and is doing it even now. This is not child's prattle, but fact. There's no why in her actions. She's of infinite power, and beyond all cause. She's ever gracious to her devotees, and hence they're everything past, present, and future. I'm the self, O good Akasha, existing in the heart of all beings. And the beginning, the middle, and also the end of all beings. Whatever condition she places us, that is good for us. Nothing to feel sorry over it. But then let this be our one prayer to her, that our mind be ever fixed on her lotus feet, that even if we should forget her, she may not forget us. That she may give us discrimination and dispassionateness. For it is only through discrimination that one is not affected by the miseries of this world. So our one duty is to remember the Lord always. O my savage mind, remember Rama always. What's the use of 100 other thoughts? O mouth, repeat the name of Rama always. What is the use of vain talk? O ear, hear the life story of Rama. What's the use of hearing sweet music? O eyes, see Rama in everything. Renounce everything else but Rama. This is real spiritual practice. And if one can do it, then one is saved. Otherwise, it is impossible to get over life, death, and suffering. We're all children of the Mother. There's no fear for us. We shall rest satisfied wherever she places us. We cannot say what is good and what is evil. It's beyond our reasoning. And so we have to pray, you are beyond good and evil. Therefore take us also beyond them. We cannot say by what way and how she will take us, but this much is certain, that she will take us. The Master has said, nobody shall remain without bread. Everyone will have his bread, though some may have it early in the morning, some at noon, and some at night.
You know, all we have to do is look at the lives of Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Sarada Devi, Swami Vivekananda, and many of the direct disciples. If you read their lives, you find that things were not always easy. Things didn't always go smoothly. There were all sorts of problems. Sri Ramakrishna had to put up with Hridoy and people that thought he was crazy, and Holy Mother had to put up with relatives who were crazy, and Vivekananda had to, again, a wonderful example of how he was perfectly comfortable where he found himself. Finds himself in a boxcar, finds himself sitting on a curb, waiting for somebody to come and help him, finding himself being hosted by very rich people, then finding himself being hosted by very ordinary people in very ordinary circumstances. Just think of him living at the Pasadena house. There were the three sisters. Each, two of them each had a child. There was their father and the housekeeper. And if you've been in that house, it is not a very large house. It is a very small house. And all those people managed to live quite nicely together. And then you go someplace like Ridgely Manor, which is this enormous mansion. So Vivekananda was perfectly at home, either place that the mother put him. So these are the kinds of examples that we're very lucky to have these days recorded. Previous scriptures from thousands of years ago were not nearly as detailed as the ones we have now in the lives of these great saints, to give us examples of how one needs to live, what we need to aspire to. And it's a struggle. You can't expect yourself to be just like them all of a sudden. But when you find yourself in difficulties, then you can remember how it was for them, and then maybe your difficulties don't seem quite so bad. And Vivekananda reminded himself and others that he learned more in difficult times than he did in easy times. And so when difficult times come, we have to remember that this is an opportunity to learn more. All right?
Knowledge of Brahman and such things is not for ordinary people. For them, the Lord's words, to those whose minds are set on me, verily I become ere long, O son of Pritha, the savior out of the ocean of the mortal samsara, for the goal of the unmanifested, very hard for the embodied to reach. The knowledge of Brahman is difficult for him who has not got over the consciousness of mind and body. But then, because the knowledge of Brahman is beyond the reach of such, it is not that they should become hopeless. In this connection, an incident in the life of Sri Ramakrishna flashes before my mind. One day, I'd been to Dakshineshwar. There were many others also. One of them was a great pundit. Sri Ramakrishna asked him to explain Vedanta. For more than an hour, he explained Vedanta to the great satisfaction of Sri Ramakrishna, everybody else. But then Sri Ramakrishna said after this, well, all these things, however, they do not appeal to me. Your philosophizing, knowledge, knower, known, well, that's good, no doubt. But what I like is, I and my mother alone exist, and there is nothing else. These few words he expressed with such great feeling that everyone present felt it for the time being. All the conclusions of Vedanta seemed to pale before this idea. The master's idea seemed to be so easy to comprehend.
Right there again, we have to realize that for some people, philosophizing is not only enjoyable, but it keeps their mind on God, and it convinces them of the reality of spiritual life and how to reach the goal. And for others, they don't need that. They can just simply accept that they are one with the Mother, and they are going to try to remember the Mother or to remember God in some other aspect all the time they can. And of course, we have, again, examples from the direct disciples of Latu Maharaj, who was not a philosopher, but he could certainly come up with very good philosophical statements if someone asked him about spiritual life. Holy Mother, the same. She was not trained in philosophy, but she could give very good practical advice as to how to live one's life. But people like Atmavidyananda and Vivekananda, they were extremely well-versed in philosophizing and could explain things in great detail and be very convincing. So that's the plus side of both, but of course either one can have a minus side too. Sometimes you can be so good at philosophizing that you become kind of arrogant about it, and you become very proud of your learning and very proud that you can defeat people in debate, and you kind of forget the whole goal of the whole process. Or you can just become a lazy devotee and just think, oh, well, as we were saying earlier about self-surrender, I'm just giving the power of attorney to God, and so I'm done. I don't have to do anything else. But then you just, again, you ignore actually practicing. Again, the book is Religion and Its Practice. So it's practicing that's important. Either if philosophizing helps you to remember to practice, that's great. If renouncing and everything and surrendering yourself to the Lord allows you to practice, that's what you need to do. And usually we're kind of a mixture of both of those. Some of us are not great philosophers, but it helps to understand philosophy. But we don't need to become experts at it. We can use some of these other ideas to help us through other times. All right, let's continue. We have some more time.
The main thing is you have to keep your mind fixed on God, whatever be the means. If that can be done, then our lives are blessed and won't be spent uselessly. Eating, drinking, we shall have so long as the body lasts. But Ramprasad, the devotee of Kali, says, "O my mind, worship Kali. Repeat day and night the mantra given by your guru. In lying down, think you're prostrating before the mother. Make sleep your meditation on the mother. While eating, think you're offering to Mother Shama all sounds that enter your ears are but mantras of the mother. For she, Kali, is in all letters. Going round the town, think you are circumambulating the mother." Ramprasad declares that mother is in everything. We have to follow the teachings of such great souls as these. We're sure to have devotion for the Lord's feet.
This is one of these paragraphs that goes on for more than 2 pages. So I'll take a pause here to make a few comments. Again, this sounds so simple, and yet it's not that simple to remember to do these things all the time. Even to remember every time you eat. Does that sound simple? Especially if you have a regular schedule for eating, to repeat the mantra before beginning to eat, repeating Om Brahmarpanam. But then when you repeat it, you have to think of what you're repeating. You have to actually think of the meaning of it. To think that the energy of the food is coming from the divine. All these things are very simple, but it's very difficult to actually carry out the practice all the time. When you fall asleep, again, so many distractions come and routines get interrupted, and you have to constantly remind yourself of these habits or they will slip away from you. Thinking of all sounds as being sounds from the mother, all the letters of the alphabet coming from the divine mother. You know, Kali wears a necklace with each letter on around her neck. So that indicates that all these sounds are coming from the divine mother. So all of these things are wonderful reminders, but we have to keep reminding ourselves to use the reminders. So that's one of the real tricks in spiritual life. And that's why hopefully you attend these classes, because they help you to remember these things. If you never attended a class, if you never read a scripture, if you didn't have any kind of regular practice of doing these things, your life would just get away from you. All sorts of things in life would become more primary, and pretty soon you'll realize that you haven't even remembered to do your job that you promised your guru to do. So we have to constantly remind ourselves of the things that we need to do to keep our mind on the Lord. Okay, let's go on.
Is what Ramprasad says different from the knowledge of Brahman? Seeing God in everything, everywhere, in every action and in every being, to work for the Lord, to know Him as the one object of our love, to love Him and give up all other attachments, and to have no ill feeling towards anyone. This is the easiest method to attain Him. Love, that is what is required. If we have it for Him, then everything will be added unto us. It's not that we do not know what is love. We're habituated to love wife, children, friends, wealth. This we have to direct towards God. For He is the one reality in this world which is ever changing. Everything else in this world becomes, after some time, stale and even bitter. Love for Him alone is ever on the increase and ever new. With respect to other objects, one gets disgusted after some time. That's why Prahlada, the great devotee, says, the deathless love which the ignorant have for the floating objects of the senses, as I keep meditating on thee, may not that sort of intense love for thee slip away from my heart. If one gets such love for him, there's no more delay for God realization. He even comes out of the pillar to manifest himself to his devotee.
Yeah, so again, another way to try to remember these things is to remember that Brahman, being the infinite, the undivided, and the unchanging, is reflected in our desire for the infinite is our desire for freedom, the undividedness is our desire for love, and the unchanging is our desire for peace and security. So anytime you feel love for something, or you watch a drama where people are falling in love, you remember that that love is really the attraction for the undividedness of Brahman. When you see people fighting for freedom, then you think that that's their desire for the infinite. And when we're trying to strive for peace, we're trying to strive for that unchanging aspect. And of course, you can already see that those things don't come easily all together in the world. They tend to conflict with each other. But remembering that those desires and those things that we seek for in the world are really our desire for the infinite, the undivided, and the unchanging reality that's behind everything, and which is our true nature. So that's why we have these yearnings for those things. All right, just a couple minutes. I think we can actually finish this almost infinite paragraph.
Everything is a question of love. The more one loves him, the more he manifests himself in one's heart. He is the friend of the sincere and pure. He's ever in our hearts. But we fail to see him because our eyes are directed to other objects. But for this, there would have been no delay in realizing him. He's ever with us. We not go to any place of pilgrimage in search of him. If we but in all sincerity search him for a moment, he comes to us. But who wants him? Ours is mere talk. We do not want him from our hearts. Such is the power of Maya that we fail to see the truth. So the Lord, out of his grace, has shown us the way out also. Those who are absolutely resigned to me easily cross over this Maya of mine. Surrender to me. There's no other way out. May the Lord, out of his infinite grace, hold our minds onto his feet. Let this be our one prayer.
And that does conclude this particular lecture. So we can continue next time with the one on yoga. But again, we want to constantly remind ourselves that we want to try to remember God in whatever way we can. Another way that's sometimes helpful is to think of God as the all-pervading consciousness. And of course, that comes up in the context both as the Divine Mother and as Satchidananda. So in either case, we can see that consciousness is infused in everything in this manifest universe. Satchidananda. Sat is that existence, Chit is that consciousness. So that aspect of consciousness exists in everything. And that's also given is one of the characteristics of the Divine Mother that we find talked about in scriptures like the Chandi. So if you can learn to remind yourself that everything is conscious in the world, that's a big help. That's a whole lecture in itself, but just as a couple of very simple reminders, every atom in the universe knows about every other atom in the universe. And so in that sense, there's a consciousness that connects everything in the whole universe. We can demonstrate that plants seem to have a certain level of consciousness and knowingness, and animals certainly do. So we can just remind ourselves whenever we see these things that everything is infused with the consciousness of the divine. All right, let's close with a chant. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Filled with Brahman are the things we see. Filled with Brahman are the things we see not. From out of Brahman floweth all that is. From Brahman all, yet is it still the same. Om, peace, peace, peace.